2014 World Championships 10 years ago that happened, up against Grant Shen. And what a season Grant has had so far. Incredible placements, top 4 regionals, top 8 at OCIC this year, on a tear, as you saw before, 14th right now in the top 16 rankings. So while he's already qualified for the World Championships, is playing to try to secure that Day 2 slot, which is so important when it comes to securing a win or a high placement at the World Championships.
Right, so we have a player that has a very big win for back in the past versus a player with a strong overall season. And we know that Grant Shen is the type of player that's going to play whatever deck he thinks is going to be best for that tournament. We always see him on something different. And for this game, Ethan, he's brought the Gardevoir.
At Gardevoir, not just Gardevoir itself, but playing that Mewtwo V Union. A big card in that deck is the Klefki, as we see Simon is on this Lost Zone box deck. 2 Mirage Gate in the prize cards. Not what you want to see right away. And for Grant, nothing too terrible. Ralt's not great to have in the prizes. And of course, a bunch of level ball is not what you want to see, but it's better than some of these Mewtwo V Union pieces, which are not in the prize cards.
Fortunately, the level balls in the prize cards going to make it very difficult to get the Curlias online, so hopefully we can draw into those very quickly, Ethan. The Gardevoir deck is known for being a little bit slow to kind of leave the station, and once those Curlias get set up, you get those multiple refinements, you're ready to go. But this is where the deck is at its most vulnerable. Grant's going to open up with the Radiant Greninja in the active spot.
Grant did not have a great hand to start, only an Ultra Ball to search out this hand, but finds Battle VIP Pass off of this Radiant Greninja, can get Klefki out, and this is the star card in the matchup. Klefki is here with that Mischievous Lock ability, shuts off all basic Pokemon's abilities if it's in the active spot. And usually this deck, you want to get set up, you want to put Ralts into play, but Klefki just buys you this time when all of Simon's setup early on is utilizing Flower Selecting. Cramorant can't deal damage, its Lost Provisions ability is shut off. The Sableye can scratch, it can deal 20, but that's not nearly enough when your opponent is putting together this monster Pokemon that is Mewtwo V Union.
This is the Pokemon that is going to keep Grant Shen in this game. We talked about how potentially clunky this setup is going to be with all those missing level balls, and I love the fact that Grant Shen has taken 2 Klefkis. This means that if Simon does have an escape rope trying to switch this out of the active, you just bring up the other Klefki, keep that Mischievous Lockdown going. But right now it's going to be Sableye in the active and Snorlax hitting the field. Just going to start manually attaching to the classic thumping Snorlax here with the Unfazed Fat. This was, I think, one of the premium attackers that really rose up in these modern Lost Box takes.
And there is nothing going on in Simon's hand. A few energy cards, escape rope, and passing the turn, deciding to take a few turns to build up this Snorlax instead of attaching to Sableye and utilizing Scratch. And Grant's going to do exactly what he wants. Finds a Fog Crystal off of this refinement ability. Going to start to get these Ralts into play. Start getting rid of these pieces. And the whole goal, get Mewtwo V in the discard pile and put that monster together, assemble it, and put it into play.
Yeah, you don't have to play the Curlia Gardevoir game. You just get Mewtwo V Union, you get this ginormous wall into the active spot, and there's really nothing that Lost Zone box can do against it. It's late game combinations with Kyogre that can maybe start doing some bench damage, but you have to be running a specific build, right, Ethan, that can hit these sorts of numbers. This is a much more balanced variant that wants to just do some damage here and there, do some early work with Cramorant, and Grant Shen is just happy to sit behind this Klefki and just let nature take its course, so to speak.
This is essentially the power of Klefki as it sits in the active. All Simon can do is just attach the energy to Snorlax and pass, but this is not a great attacker to just attack with over and over and over again because, of course, you put yourself to sleep with Thumping Snore. As Grant is going to just continue to draw through, finally getting this Mewtwo V Union piece in the discard pile with that Professor's Research. And the question for Grant is, do you want to fill this bench up right now? Do you want to find this last Ralts in play? I've got to imagine it's yes. You're going to have a Pokemon get knocked out at some point by this Snorlax. Might as well set up another refinement ability, get rid of more of these Pokemon, get rid of these Mewtwo V Union pieces, and try to assemble this. Once it gets put up, there's not really a lot Simon can do to take care and deal with it.
There's no way for Simon to take advantage of, oh, your bench is full, you can't bring out Mewtwo V Union. The onus is on Simon to be aggressive in this matchup and start taking prizes. And here comes another refinement, getting rid of that useless Battle VIP Pass to draw 2 more cards. Fantastic, fantastic ability. Just thins through the deck beautifully. And we thought that Grant might have a hard time in this matchup, but the double Klefki off the Battle VIP Pass is assured that Grant is going to be able to do whatever he needs to in this matchup.
And there we see last Ralts hitting the board. The final one is in the prize card, so that will be unavailable for the time being. And let's take a Mewtwo V-Union count check. I believe there's one piece in the discarded pile. That's it. So Grant's probably going to pick that up pretty soon if he wants to go for some line of play. Thinking about actually evolving into Gardevoir, and that is going to be the choice. Deciding to commit.
Going a little bit more aggressive here.
Wow. So this is really interesting. I think Grant has an understanding at this point that Simon has nothing in hand, right? If you had Comfey, you would play it down to the board. If you had Colress, you would still play the Colress down. And so Grant's going to say, you know what? I'm done locking you with Mischievous Lock. I'm here to take prize cards. If you don't have another Pokemon in your hand you can play down, I can just start taking prize cards, and eventually I'll have the lead on top of being able to set Mewtwo V-Union up. Very smart insight from Grant, understanding the situation and capitalizing on it perfectly.
And still has another refinement to fill up that hand and keep it going. The pressure is immense here. Simon with no cards in the Lost Zone, not a single Comfey. Radiant Greninja has to draw 2 cards. This is, I don't even know if this can change the tide of this first game, Ethan, at this point.
Utilizing
Halucha.
Utilizing concealed cards does have an energy in hand before, and now finding another one, but this is the opportunity you have to take advantage, right? Klefki on the bench, not able to utilize the Mischievous Lock ability to shut off these abilities on the board for Simon, able to utilize concealed cards to discard a card and draw. But that is going to be a thumping snore.
For 180. And it's still asleep, and that's still not enough to get through Gardevoir EX's massive HP pool, even after self-damaging with that Psychic Embrace ability. And because that route's filled up the bench, we've got another refinement ready to go. This is going to keep the engine running. As soon as Simon finds a way to get through this Gardevoir, Mewtwo V-Union is going to be even more likely. There's another piece in the discard pile.
Refinement, getting rid of that. It's exactly where you want it, in the discard pile. And this is how the engine works. Buy time, take advantage, take prizes. Usually Klefki's still in the active, but again, this is a very smart play from Grant to take advantage of the slow start Simon has had. Say, hey, listen, you can have abilities, you can have concealed cards, you can have this, but I've got a feeling you don't have much in hand. Paid off very nicely there as Grant utilizing the second refinement, finding a Peonia, but Grant should have information that Peonia is not going to be able to get any super crucial pieces out of the prize cards. Could get the Ralts out, and with how big of a hand you have and no better supporter, it's at least good to get some information, take some cards out of the prizes, choosing 3 of them, putting them into hand, and then from there replacing with any other 3 prize cards. So it's an even trade on prizes. You're going to put some back, put some in. The idea is to put cards you don't want in the prizes over there, take the cards you want, and since you now know those prize cards you're putting in the order, you can avoid taking those and just take your other 3 prize cards you have first.
That is true.
4
level balls now. The Curly is already there. We don't need the level ball anymore. Just kind of get those out of the way. Makes it very easy to map. Hey, I've got a professor's research here for when I need it next. And Grant Shen with so many resources in the hand, just going to throw down the path to the peak as well to turn off the Radiant Greninja's concealed cards ability. And Gardevoir EX taking another knockout. Simon just going to concede this one. The double Klefki lockdown just sealed the deal on this game. There was no way for Simon to even get the semblance of a strategy up and running in that first game.
I don't even know if Klefki was relevant there. Simon just had no way to play that. Even with concealed cards, there was no Comfey, no Battle VIP Pass, no Nest Ball the entire game. And I mean, you see what the Lost Zone deck is without Comfey. It is the backbone of this engine. Of course, Colress is nice to help in too, and it's very important as well. But if you don't have Flower Selecting to consistently draw cards, build your Lost Zone up, put together these plays that you're going to want to do down the line with Mirage Gate, with Lost Mine, it feels like a theme deck, to be honest with you. You're attaching to your Snorlax and you're passing, and your opponent's just putting together this entirely super powerful Pokemon EX to hit you for 190, and it doesn't even feel like a fair match at that point.
That is a great way to put it, Ethan. That Gardevoir sometimes puts you in situations where it feels completely unfair. And who knows if Simon will be able to flip the script. We've seen these Lost Zone decks also pop up in somewhat unfair ways. You know, that Cramorant suddenly just dealing a cheeky 110 on the second turn if you can really get it going. And this is just the classic strategy, right, Ethan, where you front load all of the bad luck into game number 1, just get it out of the way, and then game 2 and game 3 hopefully go a little bit cleaner. We know that Simon's even got Poke Gear 3.0 in here, trying to get that Chorus experiment as consistently as possible. So if you shuffle the cards and go again, I maybe do like Simon's odds to get out ahead of this matchup, especially going first. You can maybe get some Comfeys down if another Mischievous Lock is not Grant Shen's starting Pokemon.
Yeah, we haven't even really talked about the lists at all. Simon is playing pretty much as consistent of a list as you can in this Lost Sim deck, and yet still had poor draws, and that's just part of what happens sometimes in the Pokemon trading card game. Prize cards, again, very relevant for both players. We'll see what they have access to. Does have one Curlia on the prize cards, a few energy for Simon, but nothing too bad, and hopefully we're going to have a good game number 2 between both of our players.
Zacian V in the prizes. This particular build, the Mewtwo V Union, isn't as reliant on Zacian V, and the Klefki in the active. Not like this, Ethan. We've got the attached to the Comfey.
Yeah, the thing here is the fact that there's no Pokemon anywhere here on the bench means that there's no way for Simon to play something like an escape rope on the first turn to get out of this mischievous lock. There's nothing else you can do, and at this point, Grant has bought himself a free turn. All Simon has again, no Battle VIP pass, just attaching to Comfey, passing the turn over, and Grant's going to get down the first most important Pokemon, a second Klefki. It prevents against escape rope from giving Simon abilities back. And wow, to put insult on injury, first Mewtwo V Union piece in the discard pile has another Ralts in hand. Perfect setup again for Grant in game 2.
Ultra Ball getting rid of a Mewtwo V Union piece, also really shortening the timer on what Simon could do to even get out of the situation. And I've seen this before, Ethan, you know, Lost Box versus the Galarian Wheezing decks, and it feels so terrible to have to put down that Snorlax, put down that Cramorant, and manually attach over the course of a few turns. And Simon is back on that trajectory once again, knows that there's really nothing to be done. We haven't gotten eyes on his hand. We don't know what else could be in the hand, but we know it's terrible. There's no other basic Pokemon there. There's just a Comfey in the active. Simon, unfortunately, seems to be pretty resignated to his fate in this best of 3.
If I could describe what Simon's feeling right now, this is the worst feeling to have in the Pokemon TCG, is the feeling of not being able to play the game. Simon cannot do the most fun part of drawing cards, putting cards in the Lost Zone, and setting up these strategies. With Klefki in the active and Klefki on the bench, the only way to get through it is boss's orders, and spoiler alert, Simon's not playing any boss.
No boss, no hope to get out of the mischievous lock. We need to attach one more energy to the Comfey, maybe start doing some spinning attacks, try to take, I don't know, try to get a knockout. This is the point where you're just desperately scraping the bottom of the barrel for any additional plays, any alternate path you can take to put up a fight. We've got Level Ball, eyeballing the Sableye, maybe trying to just have Chorus experiment carry, hard carry I might add, so we can maybe get that Lost Mine up and running.
So Simon's hand is not unplayable. There is a Colress's experiment, but all it's really going to do is just draw cards. It's slowly going to start to build the Lost Zone up, but even if you play all 4 of your Colress, if you don't get the chance to flower selecting, you'll never be able to utilize Lost Mine, which is such an important attack. But even at that point, Mewtwo V Union hasn't come into play at all in this set, and we already see how bad things are looking for Simon. As you mentioned slightly before, the Comfey doesn't attack, 30 damage for 2 energy. And while that seems pretty irrelevant, you're at least slowly putting pressure on these Klefki. You're setting up for a 3-hit KO. That means that eventually Grant's going to either have to give up some prize cards, bench some things, pivot out of the active, commit some more resources. This Chorus's experiment, what is there really to offer? Just a few Pokemon. There is a
desperately dig for some other things. Cramorant's not really going to be useful with the Klefkis. Just gets rid of those immediately.
Does already have Psychic Energy in hand, has the Pokestop. I think we're spinning the wheel here, Adam. I mean, after how unlucky Simon's been this game, is luck going to be any more on his side?
Beach Court, Level Ball,
okay, does find 2.
Card.
Does find 2. Getting rid of the Beach Court is quite unfortunate because, of course, Path to Peak later on in the game will shut off your Concealed Cards ability. The Temple of Sinnoh is not too relevant on Grant's side, but I mean, having counter stadiums is always a nice out to have when you're playing this counter zone Lost Box deck.
Yeah, you just look at the top 3 cards of your deck, take all your items, put them in the hand, and Grant Shen might even want to use this eventually as well. The other point as well, Ethan, the Ralts, this could just very easily just evolve, right? Could just come right up to be the Curlia, could be the Gardevoir EX. Grant Shen took that time in game 1 to really see how bricked up Simon's hand was, how terrible the board state was, and jumped out to become the aggressor. We knew that he had the luxury of sitting behind this Klefki, but I could certainly see a repeat, just becoming that aggressor, putting a big attacker in the active and just pressuring the Comfey.
So it sounds super counterintuitive. Like I said, you never really want to be powering Comfey up, but I really like to see Simon commit this energy, and here we go. I didn't think I'd see Comfey attack in the first round of the of the regional championship here. But hey, look, it could put up a fight too. It's not just here to pick at flowers. It's here to show it's got a little bit of strength behind it. Spinning attack
30
does
damage
do 30.
is impressive. You get a little bit of damage, start pressuring the clef key, and that's really all you can do. You see when the players are in a desperate situation, they pull out all the stops and deal a little bit of damage here, a little bit of damage there. We'll see what we can do. Curlia now getting evolved and a judge after the attach return onto the clef key. Grant Shen's just going to retreat this clef key into the other, keep it healthy, keep that timer up and running while also maintaining the lockdown.
It does have access to Joust. It does do 10 damage. Of course, in the 1v1, you're not going to be taking down this powerful flower. It's packing a punch for sure. But at least putting the energy on does have choices now to pivot, as you said, into the other clef key. At least get some damage down. Of course, damage can be healed off with things like Switch Card, but any damage on the board later on means that a Mewtwo V Union spreading 16 damage counters on your opponent's board could be relevant. But first things first, Grant really looking to find these Curlia to start utilizing refinement, draw some more cards, look to the deck. None there quite yet. You usually want to have Greninja down on the board, but of course, with the Klefki being in the active position, you do shut off your own concealed cards abilities. Not just your opponent that doesn't get to use basic abilities, it's you as well.
Discards the Radiant Greninja right away, gets that path to the peak. You already mentioned it, going to be very handy in the later stages of the game. Just going to throw down this Temple of Sinnoh to bump that Pokestop. Doesn't want Simon to see any cards, as few cards as possible. Just going to pass over. Is it going to retreat the Klefki? Indeed has the Joust going. So we got a nice little noodle fight here in the active. We got some flowers versus a set of keys. And now Nest Ball entering the equation. We can keep filling up the bench, but the cards we really want to see are Chorus' Experiment. We can see 2 right there, Ethan. 3 still left in the deck, of course. Got to find a way to get those out of there. Get more cards in the Lost Zone. Try to do something from this position, but it's still not looking great. Once there's a Curlia on the bench, you know that a Gardevoir is not far behind, and once Psychic Embrace comes through, that aggressive pressure is just going to whittle away at Simon's board from here on out.
This is the Klefki experience. This is how it feels. I mean, I remember back in the day when Wobbuffet with the Bind Barricade ability shut off all abilities of Pokemon that weren't psychic types.
Oh, no.
This is how it felt. It felt like I couldn't do anything. I couldn't play any cards. I couldn't utilize these abilities that are so crucial in the Pokemon trading card game. And that's just going to be another spinning attack on this Comfey. 30 more damage, but Grant's got to find some more of these pieces. Does find another Ralts, has an energy card. Not much else going on. Grant wants to not evolve this Curlia. It does have the Shining Arcana Gardevoir in hand, but the problem is you really want to utilize Refinement instead as your draw to ability because you want to get rid of not only the Psychic Energy, but also these Mewtwo V Union pieces. And while drawing cards is sometimes better than having to just also discard one in the process, it's that discarding effect that's really important in this situation.
Grant Shen plays the Peonia, going to take a look at the prizes, has that Zacian V, maybe thinking about keeping it, but decides not to, puts that back in the prizes. He's going to note those locations, I believe also stashing away a Pal Pad for later. Really awesome play to plan for the future.
It did find Curlia off the prizes, so that's exactly what you want to see to evolve this second Ralts into play. That Shining Arcana Gardevoir, I'm not sure. We'll see if it's in Grant's hand. If he did decide to put it back in the prizes, he did. It's kind of one of those tough decisions because while you have cards you want in the prizes, Peonia is an equivalent exchange. What you take back, you have to put back in. And I'm sure Grant would maybe want that card later down in the game, but at this point, it's going to just be, listen, I'm going to ring around the rosy as long as I want, run away from your scary little flower here spinning at me, dealing some damage, as I just try to get Mewtwo V Union into play. If that can happen, there's not much Simon can do to stop it.
A fresh Klefki now in the active.
And that's it. Simon just spinning attack, passing the turn back.
That's all you can do.
That's all you can do against Klefki.
3 turns of work in spinning attacks just to take down another Klefki. And this is where Grant Shen can wait one more turn for the Klefki and now has Gardevoir EX, a big Professor's Research, getting rid of all those other, look, another Klefki, a Battle VIP Pass, cards that we just don't need, Ethan, to get a full grip.
What a
and look at
draw.
this.
A bunch of energy. Ultra Ball, Mewtwo V Union piece number 2. Can find the third one also. Possibly get out Curlia. And we already saw the Gardevoir EX coming down. This is not something
Beautiful Ultra
we
Ball
see
to discard
right
that.
away. But getting the Gardevoir EX down means that you have that into play, and it pretty much signals that this is going to come into the active this turn and attack.
You can use the Ultra Ball to discard a Mewtwo V Union piece and then search for another one being added to the hand. And now we can just use Refinement to discard this one. And by my count, I believe this is just piece number 3 out of 4. Once all 4 pieces are in the discard pile, you can immediately bring that Mewtwo V-Union up onto your bench. And we'll get that into the active spot soon. Oh, my mistake. Looks like he does have all 4. Let's go.
Are we seeing it here? Is V2 V-Union about to come into play?
And now with Psychic Embrace, you can get this charged up right away, set up for the Psysplosion. There's
It's time.
the Psychic Embrace. Mewtwo V-Union.
Let's go.
Hitting the bench. And there is the 2. Yep, just going to be a concession from Simon. 2 cards in the Lost Zone. I think that's a new record, Ethan. 2 games played and only 2 cards in the Lost Zone between both of them. The Klefki running roughshod over Lost Box.
Hey, listen, there's a reason you need to find 4 separate pieces, get them all in the discard pile, and put them together. That's how powerful Mewtwo V-Union is. And Simon knew the game was over from there. With the Psysplosion, can take the knockout on the Comfy, can also knock out the Sableye on the bench, remove all these pieces, can actually knock out both of the Comfy on the active and the bench, and from there, not under Klefki luck, but it's the same situation as game 1. What can you do with the abilities you have left in play? And from that point, Mewtwo can just wall everything in Simon's deck. Grant, going to advance to 3-0. With this Mewtwo V-Union Gardevoir deck, it's different from what we saw have success at EUIC, but this is part of the metagame. We're still super early in the Scarlet and Violet set, super early in rotation. Players are innovating. They're finding what maybe didn't do well at EUIC could do well here this weekend because a lot more Lost Box players have shown up. I think Grant made the right call to bring this Mewtwo V-Union. I think it's going to serve him well in this event.
Yeah, the Gardevoir, these 2 archetypes, right, have kind of risen up in tandem. And with EUIC being the premiere of this new format, and you know the caliber of player is much higher, the chance of running into oddball decks that you just have no way to account or practice for, you want the consistency, and that's what Tord Reklev leaned into. And now that things maybe have settled down a bit, there's a little bit more data, a little bit more rumors in the Pokemon TCG community about what's going to be played in Portland. You can make that bet more confidently, that you can bring the Mewtwo V-Union, you can bring the Klefki. We already know there's going to be tons of Lost Box out in the field today, so Grant Shen is already demonstrating that he's made a very, very well-informed choice for this metagame.
Metagaming is a very important skill in Pokemon. As much as it is to play and to deck build and to choose the right selection of your cards, metagaming is important. By playing the right decks, you can then utilize the cards that you want to take on the metagame. That's what Grant has done here, advancing to 3-0 with Mewtwo V-Union. It feels like it's been a while since we saw it on the stage. We did see it at EUIC, but it's just the exact epitome of this card that is high risk, high reward, right? It takes so much to get into play. Once you knock it out, you can't put it back. It's 3 prize cards. It's got the same amount of HP as essentially a V-Max Pokemon.
Yeah.
But man, when it sets up, when it gets going, when your opponent doesn't have answers to it, it feels like it's just checkmate on board, and there's nothing that you can do to stop it. It's just a force to be reckoned with.
It's got, yeah, the Psysplosion to spread those damage counters around. It's even got the Super Regeneration. That was the move that brought it to the forefront. We all remember the classic Mewtwo V-Union control that was just abusing the fact that Arceus couldn't hit the right numbers. And we see that Lost Box also struggles to hit those numbers. Once the Mewtwo V-Union comes down, there's just nothing to be done for it. And Klefki guarantees you're going to have the time to get that set up. So I want to see more of Lost Box in the future. Maybe we'll see what new variants the players have brought. But Mewtwo V-Union and Gardevoir, as we already touched on at the opening of the broadcast, is going to be the other deck that is going to really demonstrate the power of the Gardevoir engine, the Kirlia engine, that might even define Scarlet and Violet EX, as a format going forward for quite some time.
Yeah, we're still super early, right? This is our second event in the metagame in this rotation, and I'm really excited to see how players innovate. I've seen it from a different perspective, right? Because when I was in Japan, I saw this metagame evolve in a completely different way. Giratina V-Star is not a card we've seen a lot in decks here, but over in Japan, it took the metagame by storm. So different players bringing different decks, the format being different, what decks do successful in previous major events, what players are finding they're comfortable with. All of these are factors that go into deck selection and eventually what decks are successful in the Pokemon TCG.
Yeah, speaking of deck selection, speaking of player success, we do actually have an interview now. We've got Grant Shen down in the lounge. We're going to hear more from him about the game that we just saw on the stream.
Thank you, casters. I'm Juancho Saldana here with Grant Shen after an absolutely commanding win. How are you feeling, Grant?
Pretty good. I think my deck's pretty good.
I'd have to say so. I agree 100%. Your deck seems pretty good. I'm a huge Gardevoir fan myself. I love playing the deck. I played a straight version, but seeing your version of the deck, we got to see so many interesting things like the multiple Klefkis and the Path to the Peak. Tell us about your deck building process.
I just like don't want to lose the Lost Box, so I feel like without Klefki and V-Union, you're like pretty unfavored, so I was just wanting to beat it. And then the Path is just good for Mirror, and then against the Alolan Vulpix, it's good too.
So we're respecting the Alolan Vulpix, eh, bit? Yeah, so yeah, I just have to say, when I play Gardevoir EX, what some of the things I really am afraid to play against is the Lost Box. So would you say it's suddenly a good matchup?
The matchup basically just goes like, if you go first and you get Klefki's down, you'll win. If you go second and you don't start Klefki, you'll probably just lose, but like, if you start Klefki, you'll probably win.
That's good. That's good. I mean, you have multiple ways to search for that second Klefki as well. We got to see there. I mean, if the Comfy is using spinning attack, he must be feeling pretty good, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's actually one of the better attacks they can use. Like Snorlax takes a really long time to set up, so spinning attack like isn't that bad because later in the game they can like Sableye double Klefki, but like if I can go V-Union double Comfy and he has 2 in the Lost Zone, it's like too late for him to do anything.
That's right. We got to see that there on game 2. Just the really early Mewtwo V-Union just led to a handshake pretty much. Just have to ask, like, in your mind, when is the most opportune moment to break that control lock, the Klefki lock, in this matchup?
It like typically varies, but that game he had like 2 in the Lost Zone. So I saw if I just like knocked out both Comfys, there's not really any way for him to get to 7 that turn. Like I think the odds are just too low. But usually it's whenever you just think, like now's the time where he won't be able to win the prize trade from here.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, great answers there. I just have to ask as well, like, what matchups are you hoping to run into, and what matches are you hoping to avoid as well?
I don't like playing against Lugia because if they like high roll me, there's not much I can do about it. But I do like playing against just Lost Box because it doesn't really feel like there's much thought into the matchup. It's basically just if I start Klefki, I'll win. So it's pretty easy.
Gotcha, gotcha. And you know what? Just because we're here in Portland, I'm going to ask everyone here, what's the weirdest thing you've ever played?
I played this like Baby Mew Dimension Valley Cramorant deck with like Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, and like Sudowoodos and a Clefairy. It was pretty good. Like I won the regional and seniors when I played it, but besides that, it might be like Armaldo that I played to a local event.
Armaldo, I actually forgot that Pokemon existed, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I think we were also both trying to remember what it even does.
Yeah, I don't remember what it did.
All right. But yeah, thank you so much, Grant. Anyone you want to shout out before I let you go there?
Shout out Frank Mittmeyer and Big Joe CR.
All right. Thank you, Grant. Best of luck for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah.
With that, don't go anywhere though. There's a lot more Pokemon to be done here at the Portland Regional Championship. We're just gonna go on a quick break. Thank you.